It was one of the most devastating acts of terrorism that ever occurred in the history of America. The Oklahoma City bombing that occurred in 1995. Former President Bill Clinton was there to commemorate the 1995 bombing amid extremism and fears. Tyrone Bowman live. According to the Washington Post, let's talk about this story. 30 years to the day after a truck bomb levied a federal building, killing 168 people and shattering the nation's innocence about the threat of homegrown terrorism. Former President Bill Clinton said the country desperately needs to heed the lessons of how this city recovered, rising above anger and polarization to become a better place to live. Quote, the domestic terrorist who did this awful thing believed that it would spark a nationwide upheaval against the American government and would eventually destroy our government, our democracy, and our way of life. End quote. He said Saturday, instead, you gave them service, honor, and kindness. End quote. In the aftermath of the horror of April 19, 1995, Clinton noted Oklahoma needed America. Now America needs you, he stressed, quote unquote. Clinton's remarks came as he and state and local officials gathered alongside scores of survivors and family members of those killed for the annual ceremony to mourn the dead and celebrate the resilience of Oklahoma City, which seized on the 1995 tragedy as a force for transformation and good. Because of rain, the ceremony took place inside a church only steps from the former site of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, which has been transformed into a serene memorial to the lives lost. The building's footprint is now covered with a lawn where sit 168 empty chairs, constructed of glass and steel representing each victim. 19 are smaller chairs representing the children killed in the second floor daycare center, directly above where the truck bomb was detonated. This year's remembrance came during a bleak time for federal workers, including those associated with many of the agencies that had staffers killed in the attack. Tens of thousands of employees have been fired, put on leave, or have left their jobs in recent months as President Donald Trump seeks to dramatically reshape and reduce the federal workforce. Amid the cutbacks, Trump and members of his administration, including tech billionaire Elon Musk, whose U.S. Dog service has led those efforts, have baselessly accused career government workers of being dishonest, lazy, and responsible for rampant waste, fraud, and abuse. As a candidate, Trump accused them of destroying the country. Clinton was deeply critical of Trump's actions in a recent interview with the Daily Oklahoman, saying it was wrong to talk about federal employees like they are dogs and their activities are almost illegal. Clinton called the lessons of Oklahoma City, including how the city responded to the bombing, highly relevant to this current moment. Neither Trump nor any White House officials attended Saturday's event, but representatives of the nearly dozen federal agencies who lost employees 3 decades ago did. Isn't it ironic for somebody who has a slogan called Make America Great Again? There's so many things that are unpatriotic and diametrically opposed to making America great again. Ladies and gentlemen, before I continue reading this article, I'll just say this. Those who sit on the sidelines with appalling silence are just as deeply complicit as those who commit the deeds of wrongdoing. Clinton, who was president at the time of the attack, vowed in the days after that he and the country would stand with the city for as many tomorrows as it takes to recover and heal. Saturday marked Clinton's 4th time speaking at the remembrance event, but not his first time invoking the dangers of the political extremism that motivated the attack. Less than a week after the bombing, Clinton visited the city and spoke of the duty all Americans owed the victims to purge themselves of the dark forces that gave rise to this evil. But in the days leading to this anniversary, many in Oklahoma City have questioned whether the country is heeding the lessons of what led a former soldier with anti-government views to bomb a federal building in what remains the deadliest act of homegrown terrorism in United States history. Some worry that Americans don't remember or know anything about the attack, which they regard as painful evidence of where political vitriol and extremist views can lead. Mayor David H. Holt, a Republican, said Saturday that elected officials in particular bear an obligation to speak out against the forces that created the environment for this act of evil, quote, close quote. In emotional remarks during the morning ceremony, Holt called the bombing site a scar, a symbol of what humans can do to each other when they do not love each other, when they do not seek to understand each other, when they fail to acknowledge our shared humanity, when they dehumanize each other, when they entertain conspiracy theories, when they're willing to act outside of peaceful democratic processes, even to commit violence. The bombing occurred at 9:02 a.m. on a clear Wednesday morning. The erroneous blast destroyed more than a third of the Mara building, shaving off much of the north face of the complex and damaging hundreds of buildings in a radius of almost 50 blocks. The explosion was felt as far as 10 miles away, and many in Oklahoma City still regard it as a defining where you were moment. The Oklahoma City attack was quickly traced to Timothy McVeigh, a disgruntled veteran of the 1991 Persian Gulf War, whose mounting personal failures, including a special forces audition that went wrong, deep anger at the federal government, and growing obsession with guns led him down a road of conspiracy and extremism. He wrote increasingly angry letters to newspapers, including one in 1992 that asked, quote, "Is a civil war imminent? Do you have to shed blood to reform the current system? I hope it doesn't come to that, but it might," end quote. Jobless and wandering the country, McVeigh turned up in Waco, Texas in 1993. Outside the site of a standoff between federal law enforcement and members of the Branch Davidian religious sect, who were accused of possessing illegal guns. When the standoff ended disastrously, the compound burning it to the ground, killing 86 people, McVeigh vowed revenge. On the second anniversary of the fiery conclusion of Waco, McVeigh maneuvered to the front of the Mara building in a rented U-Haul truck containing a bomb constructed of roughly 5,000 pounds of agricultural fertilizer, a racing fuel, and other components that he had assembled with the help of former Army buddy Terry Nichols. McVeigh lit the fuse and fled, only to be arrested a little over an hour later when he was stopped by an Oklahoma trooper because his getaway car didn't have a license plate. Isn't it ironic all cowards run after they commit the deeds of wickedness and evil? They don't like to stay around and face the judgment and the retribution that will come to them because of the wickedness that they have done. They always run. McVeigh was convicted of 106 counts of murder, among other charges, and died from lethal injection in June 2001. He never expressed remorse. Nichols was later convicted in federal and state court on charges including murder. He is serving life without parole in the federal Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. A third man, Michael Fortier, served more than 10 years in prison after he admitted that he knew details of the plot but didn't tell anyone. In Oklahoma City, there is pride in what has become known as the Oklahoma Standard, quote unquote. An outpouring of compassion and unity among people of different political beliefs that took place after the bombing had contributed to the city's renaissance. Residents across the political divide have repeatedly extended a sales tax referendum that funded such major projects as a new arena, a convention center, numerous parks, and investments in public schools, which have dramatically revitalized a city that 30 years ago was on the economic brink. Yet they acknowledge that is not the case beyond Oklahoma City. While voters here still largely elect Republicans, they have shown a willingness to back Democrats in recent elections. Much of the rest of the state is deeply red and gave Trump by one of his largest margins in the country last November. Some of the president's key supporters hold top positions in state government and, like Trump, have shown a willingness to fiercely go after their opponents as enemies. Many in Oklahoma City were deeply disturbed by the January 6, 2021 attack at the U.S. Capitol, comparing the views and rhetoric of those who assaulted police officers and threatened harm to Vice President Mike Pence and others to the same extremist beliefs that led McVeigh to detonate his bomb. Quote, every single person I saw was a version of Timothy McVeigh, Holt told the Daily Oklahoman. In the days before this year's anniversary, the city marked the deadly 1995 attack with prayer services and other ceremonies that recalled the horror of that day and the long recovery. Many were laced with warnings for their country to turn back from the political anger and division that is pervasive today. Speaking before the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City, Stephen Taylor, a retired Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court who presided over Nixon's state trial, bemoaned the toxicity of American politics and discourse. Quote, anger has become more pervasive than optimism. Compromise, which was the basis of our country's founding, has today become a bad word. We have forgotten how to disagree with one another, Taylor said. In honor and in obligation to the 168 who lost their lives to hate and domestic terrorism, we must repair the breach the victims cry for it. End quote. Oklahoma City bombing, 1995. I'm Tyrone Bowman. Never surrender. Never quit.